friends. Welcome to Dads and Daddies, a podcast about the lives and times of adult gay men in the here and now. I'm Brian Reuben Sowers, the dad.
And I am Judson Morrow, the daddy.
Hi, Judson.
Hey, my little LGBT cutie.
I love that one.
It's from Big Mouth. I love it too. It's hard to get it in. It doesn't look right in print.
Right.
So you have to say
No,
it.
it has to. You have to hear it.
Yeah. What's up?
Hi. I love being your LGBT cutie. I love that. How was your week? You've been teasing an anecdote from your week that I am dying to hear.
Oh, have I got a story for you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm really happy to share this because I think it gives some texture to the complexity that is daddy-ness.
Yeah.
Here goes. So, as we know, it is Pride.
Yes.
It's also the company I work for, start of the physical year. So
Okay.
and we're promoting the hell out of this pod. So
Yes.
I've just been busy.
Yes.
And for my own mental and physical health, I took a day off in the middle of the week with no plans, right? And
Okay.
I thought something might materialize, or I could just sit in the aircon and stare out the window for 3 hours.
Right.
I'm happy with either.
Yeah, for sure.
So Tuesday night, I get this miss you dick pic from this adorable young man that I met at the yoga retreat in Austin.
Oh, okay.
And it turns out that he was on Fire Island and
Nice.
invited me out. And I thought, sick. Couple weeks ago, me is so proud of tomorrow me because I have the time to go do this. And also, shout out to my husband. I think we talk a lot about how having an open relationship, it's primarily about sex. But if you're going out to the beach to spend 6 hours with someone, it's a little more than that. So it had sort of like a date-ish component, but I think the thing that makes it safe is I had met this person previously and he lives in St. Louis, right? So this is my opportunity to spend some time locally.
Right. I think the St. Louis more than you met him previously, because that might actually
Exactly.
go in the other column.
Yeah. It creates some emotional space
Right.
for us, right? So I will, for the sake of this story,
Yeah.
because he asked me to share this, refer to him going forward as St. Louis.
Okay.
So I have a breezy trip out. I actually spent most of the train ride writing a letter to my aunt because she wrote me a letter about the podcast, which I thought was so cute. It's like, we have Instagram, we have a website, I have a telephone. There's all these modes that you could contact me about the pod, but you wrote me a letter. Adorable. So
A physical letter that she put in the mail.
a handwritten letter that arrived with an envelope and a stamp. So I just thought, I'll do the same thing. So I get out to Fire Island and he's waiting for me on the harbor and we just had this really cute kissy reunion. We go to his place and drop our stuff off and he's like, don't worry, my roommate is taking the 2 o'clock home. We'll have the space to ourselves in a bit. We grab some sandwiches with the intention of going to the beach. And then he reveals to me, hey, I've been out here since Saturday. I made kind of like a Fire Island week boyfriend and he's invited us to come hang out. Is that okay with you? And in all honesty, the answer was yes. I thought that was going to be really fun, really cool. I was kind of into the delayed gratification. It's like, yeah, let's go hang out on the beach and then we can fuck when we get back. That
Right.
sounds great. So I was very honest in my intention of hanging out with his boyfriend. But I also, because you know that I am open, honest, and direct,
Yes.
I said, well, you've had the opportunity to spend time with him this week. And I don't want to make any assumptions about his being into me. But threesomes on Fire Island are as expected as like the waves crashing the shore. Like they just happen.
Yes.
So to be clear, if that comes up, I do want to be able to spend time with you alone. And he says, yeah. You're my priority. This is just like the social hang. So the boyfriend was adorable and sweet. His friends were sexy and sweet. Not sweet enough for me to want to engage in a threesome.
Right.
But I realized at the beach, I was like, well, I don't know if I want to compete for St. Louis' attention because that's going to make everybody uncomfortable.
Right.
Why don't we just make this a little party?
Right.
So there was kissing, there was rubbing, there was hand holding, there was swimming together. And as I suspected, at one point, his Fire Island boyfriend says, do you guys want to come back to the house? I responded, St. Louis and I talked about this before we got to the beach. This might come up. I have not had the opportunity to fuck him yet, and I would like to do that one-on-one. And he's like, oh, great. I totally understand. You're going to have a great time. So he was super into it. And for those of you that are like, well, why would you be kissing and massaging and holding hands with someone you didn't have intention on fucking? And my answer to that is simply, a kiss is not a contract. And we're adults. And I was open and honest with everybody.
Yeah.
We had a great time.
Yeah.
So we're walking back to the house and we're holding hands. And I lean into him and I say, do you want to punish Daddy because he denied you a threesome? And he says, it was so hot the way you told that guy no. And I added, and now that he has to compete for your attention, he likes you even more. You're welcome. We could not wait to get back to the house.
Yeah.
Like, it was heated. So the sex was incredible. It was romantic. It was passionate. The chemistry was there. This guy is fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I love to do as a daddy is to compliment my sons and have them own the compliment. It's kind of like a call and repeat. Like, repeat after me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very, very hot. So we get started, and I say, you know you're beautiful. Tell Daddy you're beautiful. And he gets a little bashful and says, well, you know, I'm getting there. Tell Daddy you're beautiful. I'm beautiful. Tell Daddy you're sexy. I'm sexy. Tell Daddy you know he's proud of you. And he falls apart.
Oh, no.
He falls apart completely. His lip starts to quiver, his eyes start to water, and it just turns into sobbing. So at that moment, like, the sex is over. That's
Right.
the right call. And it's my responsibility at this point, because I've initiated this interaction, is to comfort him.
Yeah.
So we lay in the bed and he sobs and he sobs. And I just am, you know, rubbing his head, rubbing his back. It's okay. It's okay. You're safe. Daddy's here. I've got you. And he gets to a point where he's calm enough. And I say, do you want to tell Daddy about it? And I know what it's about. I know what it's about. Fire Island is a magical place.
Yes.
It is also the land of compare and despair. It is so easy to be out there and think, I don't have a boyfriend, or I don't have that kind of boyfriend, or my cock doesn't look like that in a bathing suit, or my butt doesn't look like that in a bathing suit, or look at all these guys that have 10 million friends, or I'm not on the right drugs, or I'm not getting the right sobriety. It's just so complicated.
Yes.
And I knew that this was sort of like the context for why all of this was happening. And between sobs, he says to me, sometimes I feel like I have nothing to offer.
Oh, my God.
Which is heartbreaking to hear,
Yeah.
especially because as a daddy, our goal is for the men in our lives, sons or otherwise, to see themselves the way we see them, right? So I was able to comfort him. I was able to bring him back down to earth. And I said, I'm happy to stay with you to make sure you're okay, to show that I care, or I can give you the space if you need it. Like, there's a ferry in 20 minutes. I'm happy to just head out. And he said, you know what? I need this kind of I need this space right now. So we're standing on the porch of his share house and we're hugging and we're kissing goodbye. And he says, will you share this on the podcast? I said, it's really, really personal. I mean, for both of us. I'd be happy to, but you're okay with that? And he said, as long as like you keep it anonymous. Yeah, because on the one hand, I don't want other men to feel this kind of loneliness. And at the same time, I want them to know how amazing it is to have the comfort and support in sharing it. And I'm not trying to break my arm, patting myself on the back, but it is important for me to sort of lay bare why I daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Not all queer people. This is a general outlook, but you know, we don't have available to us the same sort of access, the same sort of approval, the same sort of acceptance, the same sort of love, the same sort of opportunity, and we spend our whole lives compensating for that.
Yeah, and
it
looking for it.
And looking for
Yeah.
it. And it leaves us kind of broken, especially in an environment where it's very easy to create a narrative about what was going on and how it relates to you, even though it doesn't. And I think it makes the case for why Daddy-ness is not age-banded, because there could be someone who is 50 years old in a harness with a mustache that's a dom top that feels this sort of fragility.
Yes.
And a 25-year-old who is physically, emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically fit enough to support that person on their journey.
Yes.
So, St. Louis, if you're listening, thank you for your vulnerability. I had an amazing time on Fire Island, and I think you are beautiful and smart and creative and fun. I'm so proud of you, and I really appreciate spending the time with you.
That's amazing. What a story. Thank you for sharing that.
It's my pleasure. It was such a cool experience.
Yeah. I also am very curious about this letter from your aunt.
I was so worried about it.
Yeah, because you knew it was coming. Your cousin gave you the heads up.
I was so worried that she was going to have a judgment about my open relationship.
Right.
And she was unbelievably supportive.
Oh my God.
It was like, I listened to the first episode. I'm so proud of you. This is so amazing. I hope I'm not... She said something really cute. I hope I'm not the only heterosexual. I think she said straight. I hope I'm not the only straight woman who had to Google some terms. And I was like, you're not.
You're not.
Honey, you're not. I've had my female friends contacting me for 3 weeks asking me what poppers are. Yeah, it was gorgeous. And I wrote her back.
Amazing. I was so curious about that because I knew you got that heads up and I was worried for you.
Yeah. I mean, there was, the thing I was worried about was, it wasn't that I thought she was going to share it with my parents, but it is family nonetheless. And sometimes I let my parents' perspective on everything sort of project onto other members of the family.
Sure.
And that's incorrect.
Sure.
Like, these people think differently.
And it's good to be reminded of that.
Yeah, they are independent individuals, and even though they might be connected by blood, like I'm connected by blood to my parents, and they're crazy, and I'm crazy.
But in entirely different ways.
But our worldviews are extremely distinct.
Yes, for sure.
And your week, my friend?
My week has been busy, but something you just said reminded me of... last night, I was out at a cocktail party in the neighborhood that straight friends were throwing. And some of the people there are people who are close to me and have been listening to the podcast, but from my straight parent friend universe. And were bombarding me with questions. And I thought maybe we could do a quick firestorm of questions. I can ask you these questions that came up and we can quickly address them.
Yeah, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Cool. Pride rapid fire. Do it.
So she said her first one, the big one, is, have you and I ever hooked up?
No, we have not.
We have not. Not for lack of trying or my lack of trying. I once, a few years ago, before Judson and I have the relationship we have now, saw Judson on Sniffies. And even once we traded pictures, because for those of you who don't use Sniffies, Sniffies is nudes forward. And you, for the most part, most people put their nudes first, and then you trade your face pics as opposed to the opposite on Grindr and Scruff. And so when you're first interacting with somebody, you don't necessarily know who it is. And then when Judson sent through his face pic, I thought, oh, I think that's Judson. But we were not close enough at the time for me to be 100% sure. And when you clarified that you indeed were and that you recognized me, I still didn't let up. I still tried to make you
Which I mean, I'm flattered, and I will say this. I don't think especially at this point, now that we are so intimately acquainted, I don't think I would fuck you, but I would fuck with you. I would definitely straddle your head and hold your legs back and watch someone else fuck you. That's the kind of friend I am.
I appreciate that.
You're
Judson.
welcome. Sure.
And we have attended sex parties together, and we've seen each other in God knows what kinds of situations. But
yeah, I've seen you getting fucked. You've seen me getting fucked. We've been around each other naked a bunch. It's very comfortable.
Yeah. So that's the answer to that. And then the rest are more about hookup activity in general. Do you keep in contact with your hookups? And if so, what does that look like?
It depends on if it's good.
Yeah.
And like at the end of the hookup, I'll be like, hey, do you want to move this to text? And sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say no. And if we move to text, we keep in touch via text and set something up another time.
Right. But it doesn't look like dating.
No, not at all.
Right.
To be fair, for example, there's a guy in my life who's become kind of a quasi-regular who is putting on a show. He's a playwright, and he invited me to come see the play.
Yes.
And we're going to go see that.
Right.
So there is that. Like, there is this sort of like friend support after a while, but we're not dating.
Yeah. I am pretty strict about not giving out my number. So I won't move to text, but I will like reach back out to somebody. I will favorite them on Grindr or Scruff, and so that I can find them again, and or Sniffies, I guess, on Sniffies too. And we'll reach back out if I see them online, if we had a good time, and if I want to see if they're up for a second round. But it's very rare that goes beyond even a second for me. There's one person I can think of that is a quasi-regular, to use your term, of Toby's that Toby actually introduced me to. I don't remember how or why, but we did exchange numbers, so I do have him on text, and every now and again, I'll text to see if he's available, but it's again, very transactional, very much about a hookup. We're not hanging out outside of that. So yeah, that also answers the next question, which was, do you see them again and again and again?
I would like to add here, the reason I move it to text, and you know this about me, is I'm so on again, off again with the apps.
Right.
I know I'm not the only one.
Right.
And sometimes if I have enough numbers, that helps me justify not getting on the apps.
Right.
Because it's just like, oh, I can just text that dude.
Right. That does make sense. This is an interesting question. Do you ever hook up with people your husband has hooked up with?
My husband has fucked everybody. So I'm always second to it. Seriously.
That's hysterical.
I'll show him someone I'm talking to on Stiffies or Scruff, and he's like, oh yeah, he lives in Bushwick, right? I'm like, Jesus, I can never get a fresh one.
I will say, going around New York City, especially to gay spaces with your husband, like, he literally knows everyone.
He's been in New York for a long time. He's very sexy. He's very friendly.
Yes, he's very
flirty,
personable and outgoing, and has no problem. I'm so envious of like his just confidence in just approaching anybody. Yours too, but
like I've said before, I'm LARPing it. It doesn't give me joy all the time. I just know how to do it.
Right.
But if the context of this question is like, will my husband introduce me to one of his hookups? Absolutely. And either we'll like trade off or do something together.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, my husband has introduced me to one person, and he introduced him to me in the context of the three of us hanging out together. But then there have also been times where I've just gone and seen this person. But the other funny answer to this question, for me at least, is that, when Toby and I are trading stories, sometimes we'll give each other enough clues about somebody that when I see somebody on the apps, or when he sees somebody on the apps that it's clear it's the person we've been talking about, there's suddenly like a little bit more interest. Like I'm like I want to see if, this is terrible, but there's part of me that like wants to see if like I'm attractive to this person too, and if they would hook up with me too, or I've told Toby about really good hookups I've had, and he'll say like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy before, he's reached out to me before, I've never really been interested, but then I'll find out that like weeks later, he'll say, oh, so that guy, I did actually end up hooking up with him. And I know it's because we have this like mutual feeling that once we know the other person has, it makes that stranger or that third person, whatever you want to call them, more attractive somehow.
If you can name it, you can tame it. And I want to lay bare that competition intra-couple in an open relationship is a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's next week's episode, or it's an episode soon.
Judson and Brian talk competing with their spouse for trade.
And then the last question was, and this was kind of asked jokingly, but not really, and I actually do want to talk about this, is are all gay men this horny?
No, absolutely not. No. No.
My answer last night, kind of in jest, was like, well, I don't think it's all gay men. I just think it's men. But sorry, you finished what you wanted to say.
I mean, I think men are very horny. I think women are very horny. I think trans and non-binary people are very horny.
Right.
But just the mechanisms for two men to have sex, I think is easier.
Right.
Which makes it seem like we're having more sex because frankly, we are.
Right. Mechanisms, you mean like there are platforms to support us, and like there's parties thrown for us, there are apps for us, there's all these.
Even the way we communicate, though, like there doesn't necessarily have to be much of a connection behind or like other than the mechanics.
Right. Well, that's something I'm very excited to talk about in today's Go Ask Your Dad question. But I also wanted to, in answering this question, address kind of like the concept of being horny in and of itself, because for me, and we've talked about this between you and me, and maybe on an as yet unaired episode, but hooking up is not just about getting off. If it was just about getting off, I could do that myself. It's about so much about validation, and it's about, finding somebody who finds you that sexy, attractive, whatever it is, and that will do this however 20 minutes of imaginative play with you, and it's the satisfaction I get out of a hookup. It's not purely based on quote unquote like horniness. Like it's not just about like, oh, I want to like fucking get off. It fills a much larger void. And I've said to you that I'm rereading The Velvet Rage and struggling through it. I find it rather dated and written like I'm hearing it read to me like those voiceovers from like a 1950s training video, like the gay man, like just like,
oh yeah,
anyway, but it talks a lot. I mean, I have problems with a lot of what it says, but what I do agree with is that, and what I think a lot of people, even gay people, don't think about or understand, is that from very early on, like super young, super formative times in our lives, we are getting signals, whether it's from direct speech or not, just like signals from all over the world, all over our universe, that there is something wrong with us. And so even if we have a supportive family, we know that we are something that they are not. We feel there's something wrong, that we have to fix it. I mean, you and I have talked at length about like we spend the rest of our lives trying to compensate for it and doing the best in everything, which also The Velvet Rage goes deep into. But so yeah, I don't think it's that all gay men are this horny. I think there's this real deep-seated need for constant validation. And like you said, like we understand this kind of transactional quality of it that like makes it easier. And because of that, there are apps for us. There are sex parties. There are all kinds of avenues for us that I just don't think are nearly as available in the straight community.
And it's not to say that straight people don't feel a certain need to compensate. Oh my gosh, talk to a straight man about his relationship with his father. My God. But I think I'll admit it, I had a hookup earlier this week that was entirely about validation and very little to do with actually being horny.
Right.
Like I went to a book club in Hell's Kitchen and I could have easily just come home.
Yeah.
And because I know that that's gay dense, I was like, well, I'm going to get online and look.
Right.
I'm going to have someone tell me I'm hot.
Right.
I'm going to go get off with someone to prove that, what? I'm worth it. I'm important. I'm special.
And in the moment, by the way, like when I'm on these apps, yes, do I feel horny? But what horniness comes from, I think, is more complicated than just, is what I'm getting at. It's just, it's deeper than just, I need to get off.
Right. And I don't have heterosexual sex. I don't
Right.
know what it's like for a man and a woman to negotiate the actual act.
Right.
But from what I've been able to glean from conversations with straight men and straight women, and also all of popular culture, is that it is a little more complicated. Like there seems to be
Right.
a little more of a dance. There seems to be a little bit more of like a getting to know you period.
Right.
This is not to say that some straight people or many straight people don't just like meet and fuck.
Right.
But I feel like for gay men specifically, there's just like so much less pretense because
Right.
it's two dudes.
Right. Are you a gold star gay?
No, I don't know. What star is the following? So when I was, where do I rank? When I was in high school, I had a girlfriend and I ate her out.
Oh, wow.
But we did not have sex. So
Okay.
I've gone so far as to like licking pussy,
Wow.
but I've never had like concerted sex with a woman.
Right. I have never done that.
Mm-hmm.
I've never interacted with one.
Have you kissed a woman? Like romantically?
Yes, I had girlfriends
Okay.
in elementary and junior high.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to call you out here. You had girlfriends in elementary school. That doesn't count.
Well, I can think of 3 girls I kissed. Okay, 2 were high school. One was elementary school, yeah.
Okay.
And
The love of your life. Where is she now?
who knows? But that's it. I've never touched a boob. I've never certainly interacted with the anatomy you just described, and I am gold star.
I actually had a friend who also had the same experience where he's like eating girls out.
Yeah.
And he's like, I actually think a gay guy is more likely to eat a girl out because they're like terrified to fuck. So they'll do like all the things leading up to that,
Right.
but not that. Which is anecdotal. This is just like one other friend who had the same experience, but
that's a pretty decent transition into our topic for today.
yeah, which is dun dun.
Am I saying it?
Yeah.
Oh, sides.
We're going to talk about sides.
Yeah. So we'll be right back.
Welcome back, listeners. We have spent a previous episode talking about positions, and there is a glaring deficiency. Sides.
Deficiency in the episode.
Deficiency in the episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Brian, what's a side?
Well, a side is someone who is neither top nor bottom because they prefer not to participate in anal sex, or at least when they are identifying as side, they are choosing to pursue everything else that sex has to offer, but not anal.
Well said. When they're identifying as
Yeah.
side in that moment.
Right.
Like that could be a perma-sexual state. It
Right.
also could be like that day.
Right.
This is really funny. In this trip to the beach, we were talking about sides.
Yeah.
And one of the guys was like, oh, side means like no butt sex? I thought it meant like side piece. Like I'm looking to be your third. And I was like, maybe if you're just going to jack off, but
That is really funny.
non-insertive sexual activity.
Well, the funny thing is, you and I feel like have both gone on quite a journey the last few months, because when I first sat down and pitched the idea of this podcast to you, you half jokingly suggested that we do an episode about sides, but kind of with like a roll of the eyes almost, right? And then and even I think on our positions episode, which it aired a couple weeks ago, but we taped it even a few weeks prior to that. Even then on the episode, there was like a comment made that was a little, with a derisive laugh. But you and I have both like come around and realized that like, okay, maybe there's actually more.
Oh yeah, my feelings have evolved.
Yeah.
And I actually want to apologize to anyone who identifies consistently as a side or even occasionally as a side about my shitty attitude, because it is a true form of sexual expression and one that lately I've really, really come to appreciate. And I'm not proud of the attitude I had previously. I think
Right.
I was being very narrow-minded. So sides, I'm sorry. And to prove it to you, I'll jack you off.
So here's the funny thing. You asked me in, I think in our actually positions episode that we aired a couple weeks ago, about like what does a couple do if they're both bottoms or they're both tops? And I was stumped at first. And then after a moment, I realized, wait a minute. Up until Toby, I rarely, if ever, participated in anal sex. And only within the last few years have I done it with anybody who's not Toby. And so I've spent most of my life as a side. There was just not a term for it. But that was largely out of a fear of bottoming. And the funny thing is, so this is really intimate and I haven't told you this yet.
That's what the pod is for, baby.
I know.
People aren't going to be intimate with us unless we're intimate with them.
I know. So
Dish.
I have been experiencing some discomfort lately, the last several weeks.
Is it cute boy tummy issues?
No, it's further down. It's in there, and I've seen the doctor, and we did the whole STI panel. I came out 100% clean. It's not an STI, but it is something I need to be on an antibiotic for, and for a little bit. And so I was feeling very conflicted about this because, like, I've been feeling funny doing this podcast while not having sex, even though it's only been a few weeks. But you know, like when you're not well, you can't help but think like, is this my forever life? Like, am I ever going to be better again? And like, so like, I was like, am I like, because also, by the way, like my sex drive has been like nil since
Of course. Like, I mean, it's connected to something physical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and you know, I'm 9 years older than my husband. He's always seemed to have a little bit more of a sex drive than I do. And I've always like attributed that to the age difference, and I'm just like slowing down. And so I've had this fear like, oh my God, like did I start a podcast that is largely sex focused right at the time that I'm completely losing my mojo? So that's been one thought. And the other was that I was really feeling bad that, you know, Toby and I weren't having sex because, as you and I have talked about, like typically we have sex at least once a week. And great sex. And the last time we've had sex now was on our anniversary trip in May to London. Hopefully by the time you all are hearing this has been cleared up. So anyway, went on the antibiotic, started feeling better, knew that even though I felt better, I probably shouldn't bottom. So Toby and I were having sex, and I said to him going in, like, listen, I think it's probably smart if I don't bottom. And he was obviously totally fine with that. I have the most supportive husband there is. And we were doing everything else. And as we were in the middle of it, I just like couldn't help myself and like maneuvered him into topping me, which in the moment felt great. And I felt great for a few hours. And then the next couple of days I regretted it. And now I'm like back on there's like a nailed like wooden like cross across it so that nobody can enter. But it's really gotten me thinking, like, I need to find ways to enjoy sex that does not include anal sex. Because right now, when I've been on the apps, if somebody's aside, I don't interact with them. If somebody says, oh, they're not really looking to fuck, then I'm not really going to interact with them. And I feel like I'm closing myself off to so much fun and opportunity. And then you've been saying, like, hey, I think I'm aside now because I've really found an appreciation again for all these other things. So yeah, this is me laying myself at your feet and like guide me, Judson, into like remembering how great everything else is.
Well, I realized too, and sort of coming around to this, it is unfair for me to, you know, judge the label side, especially because so much of the sex that I have with my husband is side.
Yeah.
Like we don't have anal sex that much.
Right.
And I still really enjoy the experience. Like I love to kiss, I love to massage, I love to touch. We love to touch each other's bodies, like give hand jobs and jack off.
Yeah.
Or blow jobs and jack off. But after 14 years together, I kind of like bottoming is work.
Yeah.
And almost as a gimme for him, I'm like, honey, you don't have to do that for me.
Right.
Like save that for a hottie, save that for a party. And that's how I sort of started to formulate that side equated to lazy, which I think is the pejorative that people have toward it. Because
Right.
I've actually heard that said. It's like, oh, well, I don't even fuck around with sides because they're just being fucking lazy. And it's like, I don't want people to assume that just because someone doesn't want to have anal sex, that they're being lazy about it.
No.
There's a world where they just have discovered that this is how they experience pleasure the most.
Yeah.
And also, like, I really appreciate that you were talking about fear.
Yeah.
I used to maintain this sort of superiority over it. Like, God, guys, like hundreds of thousands of men died from anal sex. And we no longer, fortunately, have to enter that agreement with the same fear. We almost, like in jest, I was like, we owe it to them to be fucking each other in the butts.
Right. That's funny. No, I mean, for me, like I said, years. I mean, I met Toby. I was 38 when I just turned 38 when I met Toby. And so all that time from, I was like, I'd been out for 20 years essentially, performing as a side 99% of the time. I think, if I recall, that my previous boyfriend, which was many years before Toby, I think he would taught me, but that's how memorable it was. And but outside of that, for me it was fear. It was not laziness. And I mean, granted, a lot of that was pre-prep. Most of that was pre-prep. And so for me, there's also it doesn't happen as much anymore. But this moment of like, stop, condom, like that, all of that, which would stop the flow. But yeah, but then like for me, I had this like renaissance where I found bottoming and realized like how pleasurable it was. And then once I did that, I was like, well, why would I ever not do that? But you're right. It is a lot of work to prepare for, and the work is never 100% guaranteed.
Yeah, there might be some insecurity around it. Like, I'm rarely ever like, oh yeah, like I'm 100% ready to go,
Right.
Especially because I bottom so infrequently.
Yeah.
But if we think about, sex as validation, as you addressed earlier in this particular episode, by denying the pleasure of side stuff, we're missing out on the opportunity to be validated or to validate somebody else.
Right.
Like, it's very hot to me now that someone would want to jack off together.
Yeah.
Like, it's very hot to me that someone would just want to suck my dick.
Right.
I have this son in the neighborhood who's like a 6-minute walk from our apartment, who in 25 years on this earth is the best cocksucker I have ever experienced. And that is all we do. That is all we do. He hits me up, like I'll get a little like, you up? And I go on over and we do the thing, and it is incredible.
Yeah.
And I just feel so grateful that I didn't close myself off to that opportunity.
Yeah.
Because in that, I'm also starting to get to know him because, we'll daddy son it up. And then as we're like drinking our water and hanging out afterward, we're getting to know each other. And he's just like a very lovely guy too.
Yeah.
So I'm grateful that I have been, I guess it makes sense to offer like how I got reintroduced to it, like how my attitude changed. So it's relatively recent.
Yeah.
I was speaking earlier about having gone to this naked yoga camp in Austin.
Mm-hmm.
I know that we discuss it in more detail in another episode, but Austin Jacks, which is an extension of New York Jacks, had a party at the campsite, and it is a masturbation party for men.
Okay.
And they have a very quippy way of basically saying, like, you can't suck dicks and you can't fuck. I forget what it is,
Okay.
but it's just kissing, body contact, and masturbating. And it was extremely enjoyable. It actually took some of the pressure off.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if you're bottoming, you're like, well, am I clean? And sometimes if you're topping, it's like, am I going to get it up?
Right.
It's very
oh my God, yes.
It's very performative
Yes.
on either side. And I think a masturbation party takes a lot of that pressure away. It's also just like, I can't explain it, but it is so hot to watch a hot guy jack off kind of at you
Yeah.
because he thinks you're a hot guy too. It's very special.
No, this is helping me a lot. Because I need my mind like reopened. I don't know why or how it got so close to all of that, but I have seen these offers of like a masturbation party or, certainly plenty of people just wanting to participate in oral. And I've always, well, not always, but for the last several years, just like not even acknowledged it as an option for myself. But like everything you're saying is making me realize, oh, yeah, that does sound amazing.
Oh yeah, I have a boner right now. Like
Exactly.
even just sharing it.
Yeah.
And even just tactically, especially on a platform like Sniffies,
Right.
where there's like cruising spots, a cruising spot may not necessarily be conducive to anal sex, but it is conducive to like both just standing up and whipping your dicks out.
Right.
Which is very sexy.
Right.
So what I would like to find out is I'll have to talk to more men who participate in more side behavior to find out what their experience might be online. But I can only imagine that it's kind of frustrating that it does carry this sort of like negative, lazy, fear-based attitude.
Yeah.
And they have realized like that we're missing out. Like you
Right.
guys are the losers.
Right. We are, because we're closing ourselves off to all of these people and all these opportunities, and they likely are better at giving head than some of these tops and bottoms who are more focused on doing that.
Oh my God. Yeah. Think about all the times you got like mediocre head, like on the way to getting fucked or fucking
Exactly.
someone. And you're just like, okay, like we could have just skipped that.
Yeah,
step. It's
exactly.
fine.
Exactly. It's like,
Turn
well, we
the
got
fuck
to do it.
around.
And this is like,
Yeah.
this shows the progression. I mean, for me, to be honest, like that is one of the reasons I kind of like need the fucking is like, it's just a natural progression. Like I know when it's over then. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, we've each taken turns sucking each other for a while. So when are we ready to like finish this? It's like, it's less defined for me in a non-fucking situation.
Well, yeah, but also in this context, and this is not a judgment, this is something I've heard from people, like we get so singularly focused on ejaculation
Right.
that we're like missing every single sensation that is going on the way there. I'm not saying like it's just as satisfactory to fool around and not get off.
Right.
But you might want to reframe it as even if I don't get off, this is still like very pleasurable.
Right. That's so interesting. You're right.
I also, and I have learned, especially if a man is not interested in me, or this is very specific to me, if I meet someone very sexy in sobriety, it's just off the table for me
Right.
because it's messy, right? Like I'm going to see you every Tuesday night from now into perpetuity.
Right.
Like we're not going to fuck.
Right.
Normally it transitions into friends anyway, and the sexual desire goes away pretty quickly.
Right.
But in the immediate, I just let desire be its own end.
Right.
And it's very lovely to kind of lean into that. And you can get that through hand jobs, through blow jobs, through kissing, through cuddling, through spanking. There's just through dirty talk.
Right.
There's just so many more options than like just fucking.
Right.
What's your favorite? Like, what do you, as you start to explore, like, what are you getting into on the side front?
Well, I'm only at the beginning or returning to it.
What do you want to do?
I mean, I've told you before that like, and I've said, and this, it's been in my profile forever that like, for me, kissing is number one regardless.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm happy with a great makeout session. The issue is the amount of people who think they're great kissers who are not. I know that I am, and so it's hit or miss because like if I show up and somebody's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a great kisser, I love kissing," and then you show up and they're either not a great kisser or they just said they like kissing, but really it's clear to you that they do not.
Yeah, like they'll say what they're gonna say so they can fuck you.
Yeah. So I try to find people who actually list it in their profiles because if you've put it out there, then the likelihood is you genuinely do like it. But so yeah, I mean, for me, like a hot makeout session, and then I mean either I guess mutual masturbation or mutual oral works as long as there's that like hot makeout session.
Making out while getting, I mean, I don't know if this is controversial, but I feel like fewer men agree with me on this.
Yeah.
I would much prefer a hand job over a blow job.
Yeah.
Just because I like that tighter grip.
Yeah.
Right? You just can't get that. I can definitely get off from head.
Yes.
No problem. Takes a little longer. But I agree with you. Like making out and jacking each other off is chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Supreme.
Yeah.
Really, really hot.
Yeah. I really do need to change my point of view because like Toby and I will have maybe an evening like that. And I will think to myself like, okay, but that doesn't check the boxes of us having had sex. Like we still need to have what my friend Kevin calls big boy sex sometime this week. Like if we like...
Oh, interesting. Like okay, well that's like the immediate place you can reframe it.
Yes.
It's like if we made out and jacked each other off and got off or not, like that is sex.
Right. I know.
Like if you
I think Toby agrees with you. But I'm fucked in the head, so.
I hate to go here, but I will. Like under the law, that would be sex.
Right.
Maybe not in the context of your relationship. I also just like, with my husband specifically, even though we don't have anal sex as often, I always appreciate the experience while it's happening. And then I like the heart feel afterward.
Yeah.
For us to like make out and jack each other off or dirty talk together, just like the comfort and love that I feel after. I don't feel that way with other people I do side stuff with because they're not my husband, they're not my boyfriend, they're just like these dudes I'm meeting. But I think it's getting to that heart feel that is unique to having sex with him.
Yeah.
That makes me categorize it as sex.
Right.
I'm like, oh, we did some stuff, we both got off, and now I have the heart feel.
Yes.
That to me is the package.
Right. Every time we do this, I feel like you open my mind. I learn so much from you. This is why we do this.
Go to a New York Jacks party.
Okay.
I'll send you a link.
Okay.
Listeners, New York Jacks masturbation party.
During the
bomb.
pandemic, early in the pandemic, I like joined a Zoom jack off party.
I was a Zoom daddy during COVID.
You were?
Yeah, I did. A friend of mine ran Zoom jack off parties and I daddied them. Like I was the host.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
It was so fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I did it once or twice. I mean, gosh, the things we came up with in the pandemic.
We are creative geniuses, is what we are.
I am very excited to answer this week's Go Ask Your Dad question. So why don't we take a break and come back and do that?
Sounds great.
This Go Ask Your Dad question came to us as a DM on Instagram. We are at Dads and Daddies Pod. Please DM us your questions. You can also email them to us at dadsanddaddies@gmail.com. Our website is dadsanddaddies.com, and you can contact us through there. But please do contact us and send us your questions. We are not mental health professionals. We are just two gay men with lots of lived experience out of the closet, and these are just our personal thoughts. And I find this one very interesting. I'm a 39-year-old cis poly queer dad of two. My wife and I have been very happily ethically non-monogamous / poly for 6 years now after a long stretch of monogamy. Although I'm attracted to men and comfortable in my queerness, I still find it challenging to navigate dating other men as someone who isn't a member of the gay community. What guidance can you give me?
I mean, gay men find it challenging to date gay men in the gay community.
I think
that's not the question, though.
I think there's an interesting word used in this question that is kind of, to me, the core of the issue, which is he finds it quite challenging to navigate dating other men. And, I've told you, and I think we spoke about it in our very first episode, I read earlier this year this memoir called More. It's a memoir of open relationship, and it's written by a straight woman who lives here in Brooklyn, also a mom of two, and she talks about her open relationship, and it is very much based in dating. Like she and her husband both have profiles on OkCupid where they list themselves as ethically non-monogamous, and they each have their marriage, but they also, each have a like boyfriend or girlfriend, at the same time, that they are actively dating. They will go to dinners with. They will go to see shows with, and yes, of course, sex, but it's very different than the open marriage that you or I have, which are very transactional. These are
Sexually oriented.
Yeah, they're sexually oriented. They are, I like to say 20-minute meetups because listeners, that is my ideal time for a hookup. I don't want to be at your place more than 20 minutes.
I'm busy, bro.
Yeah.
I got a lot going on. Let's make this
and there's
speedy.
No need. So I think there might be a disconnect in how this 39-year-old cis polyqueer dad of two is viewing the gay community and in terms of like what he wants from his interactions. Because I think as a gay person, I wouldn't necessarily know what to do with that. Like to date a man who's in a polyamorous relationship with a woman and has kids. I think you will have to find a very unique and special person, and I'm sure they are out there who are open-minded and unafraid and interested in exploring a relationship with you because you're obviously super cool. But and maybe this is just my own bias, but I've got to believe that that's a very special minority, and that the majority of gay folks just would want to hook up with you. And so if that's of interest to you and if that's allowed in your relationship, then I don't know. What do you think? I was going to say like you could just get on the apps and approach it in the same way, but I don't know that you need to identify. I don't identify myself to the people I hook up with as married or a father unless they notice my ring, see my family picture on my phone. I don't. These are very anonymous, and so if it's just the physical hookup that you're into, I think my advice would just be to like put on your gay man or queer man character and go on the apps and look for sex. But I think it's going to be a unique person who wants to actually have a boyfriend who is married to a woman with kids.
I think anymore too. I'm going to lean into my constant trifecta, and that's open, honest, and direct, but also offer here broadcasting. What I heard in the thing that stood out to you is dating, and what I heard was proud queer man.
Right.
So if that is true, and it sounds like it is, people need to know. People, especially because of bi erasure, are not necessarily going to know that you are looking to date a man if they are just looking at your relationship on paper, because what they see is a man with a woman and children.
Right.
So there is a responsibility on your part, safely and to the extent that you're comfortable, to broadcast what you're looking for. What Brian has suggested is more in line with like this sexual component. But I think it's important to speak up. I think it's important to go to New York Jacks. But also, Brian and I...
You would think they're sponsoring us, but they're not.
Brian and I... Yeah, they just got a lot of free press. Not really. We're still building our audience base. Brian and I's experience largely comes from the sexual side of the apps. But I do know that there are things like Field that are more relationship-oriented and poly-oriented. I think being open, honest, and direct and very clear with your intention that you're looking to date is going to really help you. There's probably more apps, websites, community events that I just don't know about as a person looking to date. But I kind of want to do myself the favor of doing the research.
Yeah.
But I know that Field in the meantime might be a really good one for you.
Thanks so much for your question.
Gorgeous questions. So I just love how I think in my head, I'm like, the gays are going to love this show. And we've just gotten so many amazing reactions from such a broad spectrum of identities. It just continues to wow me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Again, send us your questions via Instagram at Dads and Daddies Pod, email dadsanddaddies@gmail.com or our website, dadsanddaddies.com. And we'll see you all next week.
Bye, everybody.